Welcome to the Rapport Boost podcast series where we interview thought leaders applying AI to conversational platforms. For this podcast, I'm happy to introduce Oren Jacob, co-founder and CEO of PullString. Oren, thanks for joining us, and can you start by providing us a brief overview of the company and your product offerings?
PullString builds a product called Converse, along with our enterprise conversation cloud, to enterprises who want to build great voice experiences for things like Amazon Alexa, Google Assistant, and other voice-based experiences in general. We dominantly sell into verticals like gaming and entertainment and media and pharma, and those large companies who want to build fantastic computer-based conversation between those companies and the end consumers who have an Alexa in their house, for example, use Converse to build Alexa skills that way and do it very successfully. So we're an enterprise software company who sells computer conversation design systems. I want to make the comment that PullString Converse, along with our conversation cloud, is a complete end-to-end solution from very far at the beginning of design and prototyping a voice experience, all the way through development of it, submission to the skills store, operation and market on the far side of it, and the ongoing care and feeding and improvement of your skills is all within reach of what we offer at market today. So we're very unique in the space. And for large companies who really want a full solution for bringing their brands into the space of voice at the highest fidelity possible, we're the folks they call and happily sell to them.
Any particular size and scale of organizations you like to work with, or is it anybody and everybody?
I think that most of the folks we work with have at least a small team that is responsible for their voice skill work. Sometimes we work, because our customers want to, work with a third-party voice agency who does the actual production work for a skill. And oftentimes the companies want to do that work themselves. So we're happy to go either way, depending on what's best for the particular task at hand for a specific customer. And as far as size of companies go, certainly Fortune 1000s and large and medium-sized companies, there are a few small businesses that do work with us, but that's unusual because if they do want to go into voice and they're that size, they typically have someone who will code against like the Alexa APIs themselves in-house, as opposed to have a team often in the marketing or innovation or sales or product groups who want to bring voice into part of their many channel strategy for reaching out to customers.
So given certainly your market and the things that you have seen and the things that you know, overview on best practices using voice. What makes a great computer conversation to start?
But I'm going to answer that question with the first part of the previous one about how the company got started and drive that into what I think is a strong advocacy for how the best experiences of voice get built. The company was started, if I go back to 2011, when just a quick 30-second story here. My daughter Toby at the time was 7, and there was like an iPhone 2 or 3, whatever was the version out at the time. And she was on a Skype call with my grandma down in Irvine, down by you in the beach. The Skype call ended, and Toby hung up the Skype call and looked at me and said, "Daddy, can I use this to talk to that?" This was the iPhone, and that was her stuffed bunny, Tutu. And well, I don't know, Toby, if you give me a couple million of venture capital in a few years, we'll give it a go. But that evening, I explained that question to Martin, my co-founder here. He's now the CTO here at PullString, and we contemplated that question for a couple of weeks, and we came to two things we concluded from that process. One was we were not sure we actually could do that, by that being build a high-fidelity, credible, synthetic two-way conversation. Can we use a computer to talk back to someone who wants to talk to a computer and do that well? And by well, it means interesting, not artificial, in a way that conversation feels connected, it follows along when the person wants to stay on topic and can adjust when they don't want to. And then we thought, if we could even do that, then what would happen? I could quickly imagine 472 different applications for that technology in a second. But really, in practice, what would actually get built and get used, and how would that change the landscape of how we relate to technology, broadly speaking? We talk to each other all the time. That's what you and I are doing now. As we record this podcast, and as I go home with my family and I'm here at work with my coworkers. But what would it be like to be able to use language, our language, not Python and C and Java, but English and Spanish and French, and Mandarin and Hebrew and the rest? What would it be like to use our languages of humans to interact with computers in a more meaningful way? And that seemed like a very fruitful place to go. That was sort of the origin story of the company. And as that wraps now into some of the best practices about computer conversation, I think that maybe I'll warm up to this question by offering a little bit of the observation of the not best practices. Some of the folks in this space are trying to map their mobile app or their website and the flows that are designed for those experiences directly into voice. And that does not work well. Voice is much more different than mobile, and voice is much more different than web, than mobile deliver from each other. Yes, it's different because websites typically are mouse or touch panel based. Mobile is typically a touch screen on a handheld device. Both are visual GUI interfaces with text and imagery together and buttons you can press and engage for OKs and cancels and check out from your shopping cart. Zero of those things exist in voice. Voice is an audio experience, so it's linear by nature. It's interactive by nature in a turn-based way. That's much more like a video game design than a mobile app or a website, because I say, then you say, then I say, then you say. Because it's audio, a lot of things do not work well, like long lists of options. Past option 7, I'm taking a nap already, let alone option 3. But on a website, you can see a whole tableau of lots of shoes on Zappos, and you can see 100 things at a time. That's not possible in voice. On the other hand, what voice can do well, because it is the native form of communication that we as humans develop early on at age 2, 3, 4, and 5, we start to talk. The kinds of connections, the compactness of the efficiency of communication available is very, very high, as well as the chance to do things like, taking one example off the top of my head, following the instructions on a recipe. An ordered list of things that take time to do when you want to ask questions about each step along the way are really well suited to voice, and actually really badly suited is like YouTube. I'm constantly pausing recipes in YouTube, and I want to sit and mix my eggs, and I got to watch the video, and instead, I'd much rather talk to that with the voice assistant. So, to the best practices then, how does one really build successful, high fidelity, engaging, interesting voice experiences? One dominant point I'll put out right away is that the best things that we've seen built in the space always involve contributions from two sides, both technologists and a creative side together, come together, because on the technologist side, you're probably integrating with some Node.js, JavaScript, or some backend web service, and that's what computer programmers are really good at. On the creative side, you're often having to deal with dialogue, word choice, word order, and editing and writing and crafting of dialogue, whether that's heard through a synthetic voice or a pre-recorded voice in either case. Those two fundamental skill sets are really not the same. And the best experiences come from those two different talent pools, each of which have a lot to contribute, working together to build great voice experiences is one big one. The second thing I want to mention about best practices has to do with considering the nature of voice, and that it is a turn-based, I say, you say, I say, you say kind of experience. In the nature of that, when your Alexa skill or your voice app is asking a question, about half the time the user will give you back what you're hoping for. Do you want to check out and confirm your checkout? Yes, I do. Do you want to add that into your cart? Yes, I do. What color do you want? Purple. About half the time the user will say something you don't expect, either by answering the question in an off-axis way, maybe they need more clarification, or perhaps they're just hungry and want to get a snack and tell you that too. And when designing and building for voice, the best experience, the process that yields the best experience really does evenly distribute the effort of building the skill, half into the expected things you think the user is going to say back, and half into the things you don't expect them to say back. And how you handle those, how do you redirect the conversation, or do you not? How do you ask for further clarification, or do you not? How do you allow the conversation to meander or change topic, or do you keep it right on rails? And a lot of folks only design for the positive case, because if you go back to visual GUI design, when you only have OK and cancel or a closed window, the user can do only 3 things: OK, cancel, or close the window. But with an open mic, they can say anything back to you in voice, and spending as much time thinking about when they say what you expect as you do thinking about when they say what you don't expect is really important to consider, because both will happen to you all the time.
Oren, thanks again so much for sharing your expertise on best practices for designing voice experiences. For listeners who are interested in learning how creatives and technologists can collaboratively design, prototype, and publish voice applications, visit PullString.ai. RapportBoost.AI.com.